going to Holy Island, Lindisfarne, which is the castle where St Columba formed the monastery, and you can only get on it at low tide. So you've got to hurry your visit, because you've got to hurry off.
Have I missed something with the headset, Tanya?
What, did I not turn it on, or what?
I'm wondering that. It's not very
What's that like? Oh, it's good now.
Yeah.
Good now, Andy. Yeah. Good to be with you. I enjoy something. I enjoy it. In Ezekiel 37, it tells the story of the Valley of the Dry Bones. And God's been teaching me from that valley, and I just want to share something that sort of fits with communion. But I had a prophetic word, and and the Lord said that people have become bone collectors and bone sorters, and that I had a picture of a valley full of dry bones, and everyone trying to put them together like a giant jigsaw puzzle. And the Lord sort of said to me, do you not remember what I asked Ezekiel? I asked Ezekiel, could these bones live? And Ezekiel said to the Lord, your Lord, no. And then the Lord said to Ezekiel to prophesy over the bones and command life into them. And I often prophesy over my own bones and command them to live, often. And the Lord said we're entering a season of resurrection in the world. Well, people who are bone collectors understand they're not meant to be collecting the bones, they're meant to be commanding life to come to the bones. For the army of God to be built by spiritual gift, by life coming to the bones. And so I encourage you, as we receive communion, which is a celebration, isn't it, of the death of Jesus Christ and his resurrection. And when Jesus died on the cross, he left himself in this ceremony for us to partake in. So on the night that Jesus was betrayed, he took the bread and he broke it. And he gave it to his friends. And he said, take and eat it, because this is my body. Let's eat together. At the end of the meal, Jesus took a cup, he filled it with wine, and he said to his friends, take and drink this, because this is the cup of my blood. Let's drink together. My darling God. I'm sharing tonight a talk called Don't Panic. And I'm very attuned to this word because I was admitted to a mental hospital with acute panic disorder, so I know what I'm talking about. So unfortunately I know better than I would want to know what I'm talking about. And thank you. And I could say that God has really dealt with this whole thing in my life at a very deep level. And it's not to say that everything is finished or everything, or I'll never get a panicky moment. But I've learned how to allow the panic to wash over me and stand and then let it wash away. When I was a kid, 7 years old, I was sitting on the lounge, in my lounge room, watching television, and I began to think of what comes after this, and what's heaven look like, and will I ever get there, and all these things. I started to panic, and all of a sudden I lost my vision, and I was running around the house screaming. And my mother caught me and held me until I settled down. And so we began, and she told me, don't worry, you're not dying now, and you're right, and all this, and okay. But it was a nightmare that lasted years and years and years, and I finally wasn't free of it until I was 28. So I had 20 years of intense mental suffering. And part of that included, being an outpatients at Callan Park, and different sort of people who saw me. And when I was about that age, my brother pushed me into the road in a billy cart, and the semi-trailer ran over the front wheels. And that's where the spirit of fear entered my life and could attack me. And I could say to you once, I never would have wanted to fly to England. And once I had all these things I couldn't do. And when you're in the middle of psychosis, you know, I'd have to go to the shop, and I couldn't tread on the cracks. Of course, remember that old rhyme, tread on the cracks and break the devil's back? Well, I couldn't do it. And I can tell you what, you live in an old suburb, it's pretty hard to find a crack-free way to go anywhere. So I had all these rules for living. In the midst of it, my wife started to knit me a jumper because it was winter. And I said, I won't live long enough to eat that jumper. So she was up to wear that jumper. So she was up in the middle of the night knitting like a frenzy to get the jumper finished so I could wear the jumper. But all these things, when you're in the middle of panic, can seem so real to you. And you can be in the midst of craziness and still know what you're doing is crazy, but still be doing it at the top. And when I finally was admitted to hospital, they told me I would never work again. And I wasn't competent to do anything. But I have learned. At the feet of my Father, I have learned. And because I've been married a long time, Tanya can recognise in me when I'm forgetting my lessons. And she'll just give me an ever so gentle reminder, just 2 or 3 words really, not a lecture, nothing. And I can see that we live in a world where we're full of panic. The world is full of panic. And I was really impacted the other day. I was watching after Hamas started to drive a fleet of ambulances down to the south of Gaza, and they were hit by an airstrike because Hamas had filled those ambulances full of fighters. But there were also some sick people in them. And this little girl had been injured and covered in rubble. And as they're pulling him out, she's got her hands like this praying. I thought, oh, boy. And we're in a time when the Bible tells us there'll be wars and rumours of war. That's the time we're in. We're in that time. We're living in the time now. Where people are threatening everything around us. And we can see that we don't really have any control over anything. When we feel at times that our government is being duplicitous with us and not really telling us the truth and not really reflecting You know, like we've just had a season where we've gone through the uncertainty of the voice and the acrimony that it brought into our society and all of that. And these have not been things that we've wanted, we've just had to have them. And we see around us prices going up everywhere. And plenty of opportunities to panic. If you don't believe me, at the wisp of any sort of serious thing happening, all the toilet paper disappears from the supermarket. And we see things that now they long-range weather forecasts that we're in El Nino or whatever, we're all going to have water shortages, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do this. And we hear the words echo from Scripture, fear not, for I am with you. Fear not, for I am with you. Our Father speaks to us from heaven, fear not. And yet we see in the Scripture, don't we, various occasions where people really have panicked. The prophet Elijah confronts the prophets of Baal on Mount Carmel and gets a message from Jezebel that she was going to kill him. So he ran away and said to God, take my life. Take my life. And God said to him, 7,000 haven't bowed their knee to Baal. He said, I'm the only one. God said, no, you're not. And finally, he encounters God in the still small voice. I'd respectfully ask you tonight, are you encountering God in the still small voice? Is your life too loud to hear God? Are you too busy to hear the still small voice? We're going to look at the life of Peter a little bit. I like Peter. His life's on show for all of us. And see, he's walking around with the king of the world. He's feeling great. And it's easy when that's happening to say to God, look, I'm loyal to you. I'm going to do it your way. When you're walking next to the king, you feel like you can handle anything. Yet in the days of holy withholding, we can feel very alone sometimes, unable to connect. In Matthew 26, and when they'd sung a hymn, they went up to the Mount of Olives, and then said Jesus unto them, all you shall be offended because of me this night. For it is written, I will smite the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock shall be scattered abroad. Tonight all of you will desert me. See, Jesus knew that he was going to be alone on Calvary. How would you have felt, or to be present like Jesus, being butchered and dying in front of your mother? I will smite the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock shall be scattered abroad. And then in Matthew 26:32, after I rise again, I'll go before you into Galilee. When I'm risen, I will meet you. Peter was among them, and Peter said to him, though all will be offended because of you, I will never be offended. This is a very dangerous place to put yourself. when you declare that you're going to rise like cream to the top of the milk. But he was going to sink. He didn't know he was going to sink. Remember when he walked on water? He sunk. And Peter said to him, though I should die with you, I'll not deny you. Likewise, said all the disciples. No, Peter insisted, even if I have to die with you, I'll never deny you. I'll go down with you before I deny you. At this point, Peter was thinking he was going to be there by Jesus' side, going through whatever Jesus had to go through, good and bad. When they come to get Jesus in the garden, Peter pulls out his sword and cuts off a bloke's ear. That indicates that he's a bit hot-headed, doesn't it? And when you cut a bloke's ear off, you're really aiming for his head, aren't you? You're not sort of aiming just to put a flesh wound on his arm. So Peter's had to go. But he knew at the level he had to go was not death by crucifixion wasn't the end of that path, because he had to go up levels of leadership to get the Romans involved. He's Jesus' right-hand man, and he wasn't going to let him down. We can get to the point where we think, I'm a Christian. Oh, you people quote me, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, and then I see him run away. You know, one of the things I get very nervous about, if someone comes to me and says, you're the best pastor I've ever had, I know I'm about to say goodbye to them. When I say, you're really a great pastor, I almost want to buy them their farewell gift, because I know what's going to happen. Because it's happened to me dozens of times. See, people that say I can handle any situation. I'll die before I fall into sin. I've learned not to make those statements. The reality is the tests of the times. And we saw during the time of COVID that people ran for cover out of panic. I can understand that, and I judge nobody. But a lot of times take a lot of time for people to get back. When it comes time to put up or shut up, what are you going to do, Peter? What are you going to do, Stephen? What are you going to do, David? The problem is just a little bigger than we'd like it to be. Now, Peter sat about in the palace, and a damsel came to him saying, weren't you also with Jesus of Galilee? And then Peter said before them all, I don't even know him. And when he'd gone out into the porch, another maid saw him and said, weren't you with Jesus of Nazareth? Again he said with an oath, I don't even not know him. I don't even know the man. He said by oath. So he's sort of saying, I swear I don't know him. I swear I don't know him. After a while, a third person asked him, and again, and he said, this one said, because your speech betrays you. So if I'm in a crowd of people and there's a Scotsman there, I'm going to recognise a Scotsman. And Galileans had a particular accent when they're speaking. Then he began to curse and swear, saying, I don't know the man. And immediately the cock crew. Jesus said to him, before the rooster crows, you're going to deny me 3 times. At this point, Peter's so overwhelmed with fear, he doesn't know what he's doing. Reality set in, and Peter remembered the words of Jesus. And Peter, the man that was so bold, had crumbled at the loss of his Saviour. And strength had left him, and he became weak, and he lost his ambition. He lost his ambition. Remember growing up, would they show us the old Jungle Jim movies? Or Tarzan with Johnny Weissmuller? You look a bit like Johnny tonight, Colin. And they'd be in the jungle and they'd fall into quicksand. And the more they struggled, the more they sank. And in our spiritual life, as we struggle in the quicksand of temptation, the quicksand of panic, we can just sink further and further and further. Yet the way to get out of quicksand is to stop struggling, isn't it? And find our way slowly to the side and drag ourselves out. I've seen God rescue me walking down the main street of Marylands with my wife on my arm, and I stepped out in front, and I was about to step in front of a bus going full pour, and a hidden arm got me and dragged me right back. That's happened to me a couple of times. In Psalm 38:9 it says, "Deliver me from all my transgressions. Make me not the reproach of the foolish. Deliver me from my enemies. O my God, defend me from those that ride up within me." When things attack us from all sides, when we feel like we're going to fail everyone and fail ourselves, as we begin to pray and begin to intercede, the glory of the Lord will intervene. Will send his glory. You can be all the way in your pit of quicksand and your breath can seem like it's run out. Your panic mode might be at its max and darkness already creeping in. When I was in the middle of a panic attack, I couldn't breathe, couldn't speak, and my vision would go, I couldn't see. Running round like a chook with its head cut off. You know, we don't want to be like Peter and betray everything that we've said to God and everything we've believed. And in that moment, find ourselves in like systematic unbelief. What was Peter saying possibly? My sins are too much to be forgiven. My fate is already sealed. I've gone too far. I'll never leave you or forsake you. But if you're feeling like that this morning, this evening, you should remember how Peter felt. So Jesus meets Peter, and you imagine his first meeting with Peter, how awkward would be. But what does he say to Peter? "Simon Peter, do you love me? Feed my lambs." "Simon Peter, do you really love me? Lord, you know everything." And then he tells him what? The gates of hell will not prevail against you. Peter, running and lying to servant girls, would have felt anything but the gates of hell not prevailing against him. And it came to pass, whosoever, what a word, whosoever shall call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved. Make sure you call on that name often. My wife will be a witness. I walk around all day singing in tongues. Praising God. She'll hear me sing in the night. I pray blessings over her while she's asleep, walking up and down my hallway. Pray blessings over me. And at times when I got out of the hospital after I'd been ill, I couldn't even be in the hallway by myself because I was afraid. Now I'm not afraid. Walking up and down there loving it. You can't walk out this door or out of any door without leaving your cares at the wayside. That's why the Bible says, cast your cares upon him, for he cares for you. In Matthew 11:30 it says, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light. God wants to heal the brokenness of your heart. And he said, take my yoke upon you, because my yoke is easy and my burden is light. I haven't always believed that, Susie. I sometimes felt the yoke of the Lord was very heavy indeed. And his burden was very heavy. You know, walking along feeling like if you got the straw that broke the camel's back, it'd break yours. A mere feather would break yours. I was at Newcastle with Tanya on Friday night, and I didn't tell her this, but someone brought me back my Bible with a white feather on the inside of the cover. Big white feather. It wasn't there when I went there, but it was there when I came home. I want to really encourage you. I know it's been a hard time for many. I want to really encourage you to know that God can never give up on you. It's not in his nature. It's not in his nature. And he doesn't want you to give up on him. He wants you to fear not. 360 times in the Bible, I think it says fear not. We need to fear not. Of course, fear won't solve anything. My wife used to hate to fly. The pair of us together was a funny sight. We'd have each other's arm. And you know when you're not going so well and you don't want to tell her, because you know she's not going well, and you think if you tell her I'm not going well, you're going to make it worse for her. So you pretend, I'm pretending like it has no effect on me, but she knows, because she can see me gripping. I used to fly that plane. Gripped into those arm rests, helping it take off, helping it land. We went somewhere for a ministry training course, and Tanya came away with no fear of flying. Now she likes it. We both don't love it because it's a long time in the cabin, but we're not afraid to fly.
Like you said, pushing the boundary a bit.
Yeah. Susie, expect a good report from the doctor. Expect a good report. I pray for all of you as you approach the end of this year. As you start counting your money, find out you ain't got enough. I pray the Lord would bless you. I pray for a financial blessing to be upon you. I pray you be blessed with peace and love and joy and all the gifts of the Spirit of God as you open yourself to them. I pray that you would be blessed with knowing what you're meant to be doing, have the joy, the peace and the courage to do it. Amen.